Okay, listen up, everyone. Gather around, you little fucking buzzards. Um, Russell Brand, known lord of spiritual fuckboys, stands accused of also being the lord of spiritual sex predators. I can't tell you, uh, I can't exaggerate how biased I am on this story because Russell Brand is literally just the embodiment of everything I hate about political pundits, men, public speakers, just all the worst things of all these categories. To me, it's Russell Brand. Ever since, I don't know, maybe since I was about 14, and he was on like Big Fat Quiz of the Year, and he was just loud and not funny. Ever since 2014, 15, when he said, "Don't vote, I've never voted, voting's dumb." Then he has a conversation with Ed Miliband and then changes his mind, goes on his show, tells everyone, we need to vote to keep the Tories out, we need to vote, I've changed my mind, we need to vote. The election passes. Russell Brand had not registered to vote. I hate him. I hate him so much. But we're going to approach this, okay, with a measured mind. Okay. It began with this announcement. This is happening. Let's hear it from the man himself.
Hello there, you Awakening Wonders. Now, this isn't the usual type of video we make on this channel where we critique, attack, and undermine the news in all its corruption, because in this story, I am the news. I've received two extremely disturbing letters, or a letter and an email, one from a mainstream media TV company, one from a newspaper, listing a litany of extremely egregious and aggressive attacks, as well as some pretty stupid stuff, like my community festival should be stopped, that I shouldn't be able to attack mainstream media narratives on this channel. But amidst this litany of astonishing, rather baroque attacks are some very serious allegations that I absolutely refute.
Okay.
These allegations...
let's just bear in mind, he's not under oath. He's not in front of a judge. He can say whatever the fuck he wants. But
pertain to the time when I was working in the mainstream, when I was in the newspapers all the time, when I was in the movies, and as I've written about extensively in my books, I was very, very promiscuous. Now, during that time of promiscuity, the relationships I had were absolutely always consensual. I was always transparent about that then, almost too transparent. And I'm being transparent about it now as well. And to see that...
Did he say Baroque attacks? Yeah, of course he did. It's Russell Brand.
Transparency metastasized into something criminal that I absolutely deny makes me question, is there another agenda at play? Particularly when we've seen coordinated media attacks before, like with Joe Rogan when he dared to take a medicine that the mainstream media didn't approve of, and we saw a spate of headlines from media outlets across the world using the same language. I'm aware that you guys have been saying in the comments for a while, watch out, Russell, they're coming for you, you're getting too close.
God, I wonder how lucky he feels right now that that his latest arc was to say that everything coming from the mainstream media is false. He was asked by, was it MSNBC? Is it MSNBC who asked him, can you give us an example of the media lying, of MSNBC lying? And he used an example of Joe Rogan with the horse pace thing, but that was CNN. It's like, I really hate that CNN did that, by the way. Fuck them. Like, because they've just because now these guys will just hold on to it for dear life. Meanwhile, they will just say things that are objectively refutable every fucking day. But he's pivoted pretty hard from the allegations already, hasn't he? That was very quick. Everything he's going to say from now on, I'm guessing, is probably just a standard Russell Brand episode about how the mainstream media is bad.
Close to the truth, Russell Brand did not kill himself. I know that a year ago there was a spate of articles. Russell Brand's a conspiracy theorist. Russell Brand's right wing. I'm aware of news media making phone calls, sending letters to people I know for ages and ages. It's been clear to me, or at least it feels to me, like there's a serious and concerted agenda to control these kind of spaces and these kind of voices. And I mean my voice along with your voice. I don't mind them using my books and my stand-up to talk about my promiscuous, consensual conduct in the past. What I seriously refute are these very, very serious criminal allegations.
Okay.
Also, it's worth mentioning that there are witnesses whose evidence directly contradicts the narratives that these two mainstream media outlets are trying to construct, apparently in what seems to me to be a coordinated attack. Now, I don't want to get into this any further because of the serious nature of the allegations, but I feel like I'm being attacked, and plainly they are working very closely together. We are obviously going to look into this matter because it's very, very serious. In the meantime, I want you to stay close, stay awake, but more important than any of that, if you can, please stay free.
That's probably the most, even though that was very, that was a sharp pivot, that probably is the most direct I've ever seen him address an issue for quite a while. I always wonder, is Russell Brand, is he going to use his rhetorical style? Because Russell Brand, his rhetorical style is all he has. He is a master of saying, of giving the most impressive, dense vocabulary word salad without, on any topic, without saying anything. And I wonder if he's going to be able to speak like that in court, you know, like Russell Brand, where were you on the night of August 21st, 2014? Well, it's interesting that you ask me this question because really, where are any of us in this linear transgression that we supposedly construe as time? Where does my consciousness end and really does your one begin, Your Honor? How can we maybe transcend this linear progression of life that is imposed on us in this consumerist, capitalist? I really want to come back to basics of meditation and my 6 million subscribers. Like he didn't say anything. And it's so convincing to people. Like, and maybe I'm just like very biased against this particularly because when I was in most of my 20s, I was involved in music scenes, and the problem with musicians is that they are they like aesthetics. You know, they're very right-brained, for lack of a better term, and just they're the kind of motherfuckers who, like, so many of them just thought, like, even the ones who didn't like Russell Brand were like, oh yeah, I think he's onto something though. You know, there's something in there. And it's like he's just the kind of motherfucker that you can sit there and not understand a fucking word he said, and still feel like you're clever for having heard it. It's so dumb. I hate him so much. But we're impartial. He's innocent until proven guilty. Innocent until proven guilty. Lorna Box, quick. Okay, let's read the Hardcore Val with the $2. Thank God you're streaming. No one is available. Okay, listen. I'm happy. I'm proud to be your last resort. Okay. Okay. Let's investigate. Let's review the allegations released by the Sunday Times. So, 4 women, one of whom was 16, have made allegations against Russell Brand. The comedian and actor, Russell Brand, has been accused of rape, sexual assaults, and emotional abuse during a 7-year period at the height of his fame. 4 women have alleged sexual assaults between 2006 and 2013, while he was a presenter for BBC Two Radio and Channel 4, and then an actor in Hollywood films. Others have made a range of accusations about Brand's controlling, abusive, and predatory behavior. Brand denied the allegations and said his relationships have all been consensual. The findings come from a joint investigation by the Sunday Times, The Times, and Channel 4 dispatches. Channel 4 are going to, I think their documentary is probably airing either right now or starting in like 4 minutes. But yeah. One woman alleges that Brand raped her against a wall in his content warning. Jesus Christ. Okay. Apparently these accusations are really, like, they're graphic and they're rough anyway. One woman alleges that Brand raped her against a wall in his Los Angeles home. She was treated at a rape crisis center on the same day, according to medical records. Text messages show that in the hours after leaving his house, she told Brand that she had been scared by him and felt taken advantage of, adding, "When a girl says no, it means no." Brand replied, saying he was very sorry. A second woman alleges that Brand assaulted her when he was 31 and she was 16 and still at school. She said he referred to her as the child during an emotionally abusive and controlling relationship that lasted for about 3 months, and that Brand once forced his penis down her throat, making her choke. She said she tried to push him off and said she had to punch him in the stomach to make him stop. Okay. Ugh. A third woman claims that he sexually assaulted her while she worked with him in Los Angeles and that he threatened to take legal action if she told anyone about her allegation. The fourth described being sexually assaulted by Brand and him being physically and emotionally abusive towards her. All said they felt ready to speak only after being approached by reporters. Several said they felt compelled to do so given Brand's newfound prominence as an online wellness influencer with millions of followers on YouTube and other sites. The others have accused him of physical and emotional abuse, sexual harassment, and bullying. If anyone wants some context, if anyone knows Catherine Ryan, this Canadian comedian in the UK has a little while ago, she spoke about someone within the industry who was a sex pest and was very pushy and harassy, and that everyone knew about it, but no one really said anything. And there's a bit of speculation that the guy in question was Russell Brand. Anyway. The others have accused him of physical and emotional abuse, sexual harassment, and bullying. Most of the women who do not know each other have chosen to remain anonymous. Over the past few years, reporters have interviewed hundreds of sources who knew or worked with Brand, ex-girlfriends, their friends and family, comedians, and other celebrities, people who worked with him on radio and TV, and senior staff at the BBC, Channel 4, and other media organizations. Along with these interviews, reporters have seen private emails and text messages, submitted Freedom of Information requests, viewed medical and therapist notes, scrutinized Brand's books and interviews, and watched and listened to hundreds of hours of his shows on the BBC, Channel 4, and YouTube to corroborate allegations. The thing about this is, like, because I'm trying to... I'm gonna let my bias very loose here. I feel like I feel like this is one of the least surprising things I've ever heard about, like, any celebrity. I know when Jimmy Savile came out, so many people were just like, "Yeah, I knew it. I knew it. I knew it." Yeah, but like, I remember I went to see a Russell Brand show once in like 2013. I was dragged to it. I did not want to be there. It was called the Messiah Complex, where he talks about all the things he has in common with like Gandhi, fucking Che Guevara, Jesus. It was so cringe. And at the end of his show, he did a joke about like second coming, right? Christ and all that. And leading up to the joke, he was talking about how it sounded like he was selling himself as like a sexual partner. Like he did this whole thing about how it wasn't even a joke. It was just like, he just kept on saying how he always wants to come second. And he was like, any girl that sleeps with me tonight after the show, I'll come second. And I'm like, I don't know. It just made me feel so like using your show to fucking advertise yourself for sex after this. Oh God. But red flag, I guess. Yeah. Apparently these days, his shows are like maybe an hour and a half long. And then he'll spend the next 2 or 3 hours doing meditations with the audience. And it's not really like written into the show program. Yeah. Anyway. Brand, who is now 48, has managed to maintain his fame for the past 2 decades through reinvention. First as a stand-up comedian known for debauchery before becoming a primetime Channel 4 TV host, BBC radio star, Hollywood actor, and most recently, a wellness guru and anti-establishment influencer with millions of followers online. Throughout his career, Brand's material has acknowledged his sex addiction, and he has often publicly joked about his predatory behavior and sex life. There were rumors of more sinister behavior said to be discussed as an open secret by senior TV and radio executives and among female comedians who warned each other of his behavior. But the women involved previously felt unable to speak out. Their stories, now told publicly for the first time, shine a light on Brand's mistreatment of women behind closed doors and on the industries that enabled him. The Times and the Sunday Times gave Brand 8 days within which to reply to detailed allegations, including information to enable him to recall the alleged incidents. Lawyers for Brand initially said that they were not in a position to provide any response to the allegations because we had posed a large litany of questions and had intentionally chosen to anonymize the names of the women. They characterized this as deliberate and part of a preconceived strategy aimed at damaging their client. They said that publication was a concerted campaign, and their client believes that there is a deeply concerning agenda to all this, namely the fact that he is an alternative media broadcaster competing with the mainstream media. Pressed to provide a full response, the same lawyers did not reply. When given further opportunity to respond, Brand broadcast a statement on his YouTube channel saying, amidst this litany of astonishing, rather baroque attacks. Why did he call them baroque? That doesn't even mean anything. It means nothing. Russell Brand. I feel like Russell Brand, as part of his punishment, even if they find him innocent, like, I feel like he should be forced to just deliver all of his ideas in the form of text. Because every time he writes a book, everyone fucking hates it. Anyway, some very serious allegations that I absolutely refute. He said his relationships have always been consensual. He accused the mainstream media of a coordinated attack and said that there are witnesses whose evidence directly contradicts the narratives. The Sunday, I wonder, I saw this comment underneath one of his tweets of someone saying the most Russell Brand fan thing anyone has ever said. EJ Rosetta. Isn't this the turf colors? Yeah, friendliest turf. I love watching Russell Brand because if I can understand even 1/3 of what he says, that means I'm very, very clever. Oh, also, hi, Russell. We met twice when I was 16, and so they say irresistible. Okay. I have a very good predator radar, and you're not one. You were sweet and respectful. I'm 35 now for context. I mean, you were absolutely hammered, but not at all inappropriate. I don't know if he's been accused of assaulting one 16-year-old. He hasn't been accused of assaulting every 16-year-old he's ever met anywhere, ever. But again, this is the brain of the average Russell Brand viewer to me. They are so fucking unbelievably stupid anyway. The Sunday Times asked his lawyer for the evidence referred to, but no answer was provided. He sent a car to my school to take me out of lesson. As her taxi approached Russell Brand's home, Alice remembers the driver begging her not to go inside. Recognizing the destination, he had started to ask questions. Alice admitted she was 16 and still in school. She says the driver replied that his daughter was the same age and entreated Alice. Please, I'm asking you not to go in there. You could be my little girl, and I would want someone to do this for her. Damn. Fucking Giga Chad taxi driver. He offered to take her home without charge, but Alice insisted she was fine. He had just such a sad look in his eyes, she recalls. Alice, whose name we have changed to protect her identity, now realizes that she wasn't fine. During a relationship that lasted for about 3 months when Brand was a radio BBC presenter, she says that he referred to her as the child and alleges that he became increasingly controlling and then emotionally and sexually abusive. Brand, then 30, sent a car to her secondary school to take her out of lessons and to his home, she says, and asked her to save his name in her phone as Carly to deceive her parents. Brand's management knew that he had a teenage girlfriend and advised him not to be seen with her in public, she says. Alice alleges that Brand once forced his penis down her throat, making her choke, and that after trying to push him off, he only stopped after she hit him in the stomach. She says she was visibly upset after the incident. Brand made his name in comedy in the early 2000s and also achieved the status of London's most Lascivious?
Lascivious.
Lascivious. Oh my, am I dyslexic? Oh, sorry, Jesus. All right. Lascivious Lothario. I'm not gonna, okay. After he gave up drugs in 2002, Brand filled that void with sex. In 2005, he received treatment for sex addiction at a clinic in the US. His womanizing ways, he once said he could sleep with 80 women in a month, saw him crowned Shagger of the Year by The Sun 3 times, have relationships with some of the world's most beautiful women, including Kate Moss, and marry the pop star Kate Perry in 2010. They divorced in 2012. When Alice met Brand in 2006, he was becoming a household name as the host of Channel 4's Big Brother's Big Mouth and a BBC radio presenter. She was 16, recovering from an eating disorder, and had never had a boyfriend. Shagger of the... It's... British culture is weird, man. He approached her in Leicester Square after she had been shopping at Topshop in Oxford Circus, and he had been working at a nearby studio. Alice recognized him from TV and had previously seen him do stand-up. He took my shopping bags from me, which was quite disarming, and proceeded to go through my purchases and critique them. And then he took one dress out and said to me, "You're going to wear this on our date this week," she recalls. Jeez, in the middle of Leicester Square. Bro. Brand asked her to dinner, and she later told her mother, who made Alice text Brand to tell him her age, assuming it would put him off. It didn't. Alice's mother was very upset, but did not feel she could control who her daughter met. Hmm. I think there is actually a really big problem. Probably not so much anymore. I think people are a bit wiser now. But back in the mid 2000s, I seem to remember that, like, the idea of like fucking adults dating 16, 17-year-olds, I just seem to remember people seeing it as like a very fucking normal thing. Because it's like it's legal in the UK. I just I wonder how normal this is though for a mother to be okay with that. Like in the 2000s. It shouldn't be, but I mean, fuck. I seem to remember in school being about, I think I was about maybe 14 or 15, probably 15, when you started to notice older guys, maybe even college guys, just standing outside the school waiting to pick up their girlfriends who were in our year. So like 15 years old and shit. Yeah. I remember wearing a red wiggle dress and big platform shoes and had my hair blown out when I was wearing makeup. Alice now remembers. But I didn't look like a woman by any means. I was a child that had got dressed up for dinner. On their first date, she claims Brand asked her as soon as they met to confirm she was definitely 16, saying, "I don't give a fuck if you're 12. I need to know where I stand legally." That's interesting. I don't know what that sent it. Okay. During the early stages of her relationship, Alice says Brand was very charming and very attentive, sending her verbose messages. She remembers feeling giddy and special. Before the first time they had sex, Alice said she told him she was a virgin and claims he was instantly aroused. He was like, "Oh my God, my baby," and picked me up and cradled me in his arms like a child and was stroking my hair. He's like, "You're my little dolly." She says he became preoccupied with her being innocent and pure. She claims that there was a large mirror on the wall, and she remembers during sex, he raised his arm above his head like this power stance, like he was conquering something. Well, like fucking Patrick Bateman and shit. Oh, God. Over the following weeks, Brand referred to her as the child, asked her to read Vladimir Nabokov's Lolita, and coached her on what to say to her parents when he wanted to see her, Alice says. Okay. Although Alice was over the age of consent in the UK, she and a family member who had also spoken to the Sunday Times to corroborate her story both described Brand's behavior as grooming. Alice says he suggested how she should deceive her parents into allowing her to visit him, and claims that he gave her scripts on how to lie to them. She also alleges that he told her not to trust her friends and that they would all be looking to make money from it if she revealed she was seeing him. It was isolating, she said. Russell engaged in the behaviors of a groomer. Looking back, but I didn't even know what that was then, or what that looked like, she says. Alice recalls that Brand told her never to send him sexual images, and she believed this was because of her age. Alice accuses Brand of being controlling. She says that he once ran a bath for her and demanded that she stay in it while he went out for about an hour. What the fuck? Another time, Alice alleges that Brand removed the condom during sex without her knowing. Okay. When he invited her over on his 31st birthday, Alice's mother insisted on driving her to emphasize to him that this was a girl with loving parents. When Alice's mother went to meet Brand on the doorstep, Alice says that he blocked the door and leaned down and kissed my mother on the mouth. She says that afterwards her mother was very, very upset at Brand's behavior and pleaded with Alice to come home with her, but Alice chose to stay. Towards the end of the relationship, Alice says that Brand sexually assaulted her. She says, I was sat up in the bed against the headboard and he forced his penis down my throat and I couldn't breathe. It was just choking me and I couldn't breathe, and I was pushing him away and he wasn't backing off at all. She says, I ended up having to punch him really hard in the stomach to get him off. I was crying and he said, Oh, I only wanted to see your mascara run away. Then I knew at that point that he didn't care about hurting me physically or emotionally. It shouldn't take you having to punch someone and to win them to get them off you. It shouldn't be a physical fight. As Alice lay on one side of the bed after the attack, she alleges that he climbed on top of her, held open her mouth, and drooled into it. I was gagging and trying to fight him off me, but he's lying on top of me, so I can't. My limbs are trapped underneath him, and I just thought, why are you doing this? It can't even be any sexual gratification in this. And then he held my mouth shut and made me swallow it, and so I was gagging and crying. The relationship ended when Brand invited her over one day and she arrived to find another woman in his bed. I was so angry and I said to him, Why would you do this to me? This is so humiliating. Alice has decided to speak out because she now believes that she was too young to be able to consent to a relationship with an adult man, and that the law should be changed to protect those under 18. My mum still feels like she failed me in some way in allowing this to happen, but she had no recourse at all, she says. It shouldn't be legal for a 16-year-old to have a relationship with a man in their 30s. There should be something in place to protect children. She also wants the entertainment industry to change. For many years, Brand has been applauded for his jokes describing how he has manipulated women for sex. I think he was very skillful in the art of making his identity be I'm the womanizer, I'm a sex addict, I'm inappropriate, but it's all just a joke. It's funny. It's a smokescreen for a lot more of his dark behavior. You know what the crazy thing is I'm trying to think which of these acts in the UK are criminal. Like, the age thing isn't criminal in the UK as far as I know. I think the assault is, but even with our definition of rape, like, it's really sketchy. Is stealthing a crime in the UK? I've never actually known that. I think it would be, but yeah, it's considered rape. Okay. Yeah. Life in prison. Okay. Thought we were working. Okay. Ju- There's still quite a bit going here. God. During the early years of Brand's TV career as a Channel 4 presenter, there were repeated incidents which raised questions about his interactions with young women while working for them. TV researchers and runners who worked on Channel 4 shows during this period alleged that Brand would get staff to approach young female audience members so he could meet them after filming. This, based on the one show I was at of his and what he said afterwards, I used to wonder at the time when Russell Brand was doing the whole like any girl who sleeps with me after the show, like I'll come second and shit. Like, um, it did make me wonder, like when people like him do those shows, is like how do they get the girls backstage and shit? And like, I guess yeah, they would recruit people. They would have people to approach them or like ask them to come back, right? So that doesn't surprise me at all. Two former crew members working on Big Brother's E Forum, a live spin off debate show presented by Brand that would become Big Brother's Big Mouth, separately claimed this made them feel like they were working as a pimp for Brand. One says she remembers women calling her in tears after feeling they had been treated poorly by Brand. Another claims there were occasions she had to collect Brand from a hotel room and he appeared in his underwear and suggested having a quickie, and she could not tell if he was joking or not. She says Brand's behavior was widely discussed by those working on the TV set. One runner, Rachel, who was 24 at the time, says she once walked into Brand's dressing room and claims he flashed his penis at her. She alleges that Brand insinuated that she could give him oral sex. She was shocked and refused. She felt unable to tell anyone about what happened and was worried that if she had complained, she would lose her job. She says Brand continued to pursue her, and sometime after, he asked her to visit his flat. When she arrived, they kissed and had sex. They began a relationship, but she alleges he told her to keep it a complete secret. She claims Brand told her he had written it into his contract and he wasn't allowed to have any sexual contact with anyone working on Big Brother. Endemol said that they had reviewed the contract and Brand did not have a clause pertaining to sexual relationships. Oh. A researcher claims Brand's behavior while working on eForum and Big Brother's Big Mouth was reported to production managers at Endemol, the company commissioned by Channel 4 to produce the shows. They alleged that they complained about Brand pursuing audience members for sex, but claims their concerns were dismissed. The researcher remembers being told by a talent manager, "It's what happens with the talent. Boys will be boys. It's not a big deal." A spokesman for Banijay UK, which bought Endemol in 2020, said it had reviewed files and correspondence and could find no records of issues about Brand being raised formally or discussed with Endemol. It said, "We take our duty of care to our cast, crew, and staff extremely seriously. While the legacy company, Endemol, did have a code of conduct, support policies, and escalation procedures in place during the period in question, they were not as robust as our current processes. We are sorry these women did not feel supported and protected while working on these productions, and in light of these serious allegations, encourage them to contact us in confidence." Brand would regularly have sex with women he met at events. Two who went back to his home on separate occasions claim he became threatening and shouted at them when they refused to have intercourse with him. One left his home in tears. Helen Berger, who worked with Brand's personal assistant in 2006, says that during her interview for the job, she told one of his managers that she had a girlfriend. The manager later told her that her being gay was seen as a plus for the job. She believes the manager wanted to make sure that I would be safe. He just wanted a purely platonic situation. Berger says that Brand was a narcissist and would often only wear underwear while she worked. She also remembers Brand openly showing his friends intimate pictures of women. Once, while in Edinburgh for the festival and in a bar, she saw Brand showing pictures like these to friends. She says, "I leant in. As he's going through these pictures, he gets to a picture of somebody I knew. It did something to me. It made me feel really sick to my stomach. These are women who aren't expecting to be shown to the dude's friends." Liliana Dalla Piana, a highly experienced celebrity assistant who worked for Brand between December 2007 and January 2008, says that's really short. That's like a month, right? I'm not fucking crazy. December, end of the year, yeah. Says that she believed she was hired by his managers because she was nearer to his mother's age than this. She recalls that at her interview, Brand said that he liked to walk around with nothing on, or sometimes just a long kaftan with nothing underneath. Dalla Piana remembers replying, "I've got a son who's older than you. I've seen it all." Brand would go on to be hired by the BBC, first on BBC Six Music in April 2006, before he was moved to Radio 2 that November. He often courted controversy, culminating in the Sashgate scandal. I remember this, fuck. In October 2008, Brand and his co-presenter Jonathan Ross made prank calls to the actor Andrew Sachs, who played Manuel in Fawlty Towers, leaving a lewd message on his answer phone. Brand hinted at a relationship with Sachs' granddaughter Georgina Bailey, prompting Ross to declare he fucked your granddaughter, which Sachs had not known about. Yeah, this was a story at the time. Him and Jonathan Ross called this actor and told him that Brand had fucked his granddaughter. Yeah. When the scandal emerged, Gordon Brown, then the Prime Minister, criticised the broadcast, and both Brand and the station's controller, Leslie Douglas, resigned from the BBC, which was fined £150,000 by Ofcom. The BBC admitted that editorial standards had been broken. Yeah, he played the tapes on air, yeah. Following the scandal, Brandt moved to Los Angeles, where he focused on a Hollywood film career and a new American TV show. He remained in LA after his marriage to Perry failed in 2012. At a party one night, he met Nadia, a businesswoman who was then in her 30s. They exchanged numbers, and Brand later got in touch, and they had begun texting and talking on the phone. She said they met up in June 2012 at his house in LA and went on to have consensual sex, but she was unsettled by his glazed over look. He does this thing when he glazes over. I don't know what's going on in his head. It was fine, but it was a weird first time experience with someone when you're having sex with them for the first time. During one text exchange, Brand suggested that Nadia bring a friend. They then met again in the early hours of the morning of July 1st, when she arrived at his house after he had pleaded with her to come over. When I walked in, the door was unlocked and I just walked in, Nadia says. He comes running out of the bedroom naked, and I'm kind of taken aback. I've got a bag on my shoulder, a little dress, and a coat on top. Nadia says Brand took her to a wall and kissed her and made her comment something along the lines of, I'll keep you safe. Made a comment. He then told her that a friend was already in the bedroom and that he wanted her to join them. I'm like, no, that's not happening. I don't care. That's not happening. We're not doing that, she says. I tried to get away from him and I slipped away from the wall. And then I went to another wall that had a painting on it, a huge painting. And my bag got actually stuck underneath that and it's still on my arm. And at this point, he's grabbing my underwear, pulling it to the side. Nadia alleges that she told Brand to get off her and that she wanted to leave, but he carried on. I'm stuck underneath the painting and he's pushing up against me, she says. He's a lot taller than me and he has that glazed look in his eye again. And I can't move. And I told him, get off, get off. Nadia claims that Brand pushed her up against the wall and raped her without a condom. Brand finally finished and she says she pushed him away. And then he blocks the door that I've come into because he doesn't want me going, Nadia says. He's like, are you okay? I'm like, no, I'm not okay. You need to get away from me. And he's like, let's calm down. Nadia says that Brand eventually stepped away from the door he had been blocking after Nadia told him she wanted to use the bathroom. I ran out and I jumped in my car. Thank God I didn't park in his driveway and booked it out of there. That was it. I sat on the road a little bit longer. I was in a daze. At 3:29 a.m., Brand sent Nadia a text message. He wrote, I'm sorry. That was crazy and selfish. I hope I can forgive you. I know that you're a lovely person. X. He tried phoning her at 3:51 a.m., but the call went unanswered. And she responded, oh, it'll show here, okay. You scared the shit out of me. You're right, I am a lovely person, and for you to take advantage of me like that is unacceptable. You have a problem, you need help. It's dangerous that you think you can get your own way all the time. Do you know how scary you are when that glazed look comes over you? When a girl says no, it means no. Do I have to go and get myself tested? Last time you asked me condom or no condom. When I say condom, that doesn't mean it's optional. You don't have the best reputation. I pride myself on being safe and trying to make the right decisions. Obviously, this was a bad one. I'm so disappointed. I'm very sorry. You don't need to get tested. I will make this up to you somehow with love and kindness. Not my original idea, which was more sex. Jesus fucking Christ. Fucking loser. You've been lovely to me and I'm embarrassed by my behavior. Sorry. Will you ever forgive me? Yes. What's that? 5 days later. Nadia says she was up most of the night. She did not reply to Brand's text until 10:59 a.m. She wrote that he had taken advantage of her and scared the shit out of me. She wrote in her text to Brand, do you know how scary you are when that glazed look comes over? When a girl says no, it means no. Do I have to go and get myself tested? Brand replied that he was very sorry and wrote, you don't need to get tested. We've already read all that. The US phone number that Brand used to send the messages has been verified by multiple sources. Nadia, meanwhile, had told a close friend that what had happened, and she took her to the rape treatment center. at UCLA Santa Monica Medical Center that same day. She has shared a full copy of her treatment records, which state that she provided her underwear and other samples as evidence, which were frozen. An officer from the Los Angeles Police Department was alerted by the center, according to the notes, but she chose not to make a police report, saying to the center she didn't think my words would mean anything up against his. The notes also state that she was worried that if her assailant's name is somehow released, then her name will be dragged through the dirt. Nadia had therapy at the clinic for the following 5 months. During her therapy sessions, records showed that Nadia was contemplating criminal or civil proceedings before ultimately deciding against it. However, she wrote Brand a letter hoping to regain some of her power in the process, her note said. And she says she sent it to his house. In the letter, she asked, "Do you know what you just put me through, my body through? You scared the shit out of me on July the 1st. I thought in any situation I would be strong enough to fight someone off. You completely broke me down." Brand kept building his career in America. The following year, another woman claimed she was the victim of a sexual assault at Brand's house. Phoebe, who is in her 20s, says she met Brand at an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting before they started working together, and that she had a brief sexual relationship with him, which had ended by the time of the alleged attack in early 2013. Phoebe says that the team working on a project with Brand at the time worked from different locations, including from his property in West Hollywood. She was at his house when she realized that a member of his staff had gone out and they were alone. She describes being trapped in a bedroom and realizing that Brand wanted to have sex with her. She says she can't remember whether he was naked or in his underwear, but he ended up naked at some point and started chasing her. She claims, "He grabbed me and he got me on the bed." She claims he tried to kiss her and removed her clothes as he pinned her down. Phoebe says, "And I saw something come over his eyes. I swear to God, like black. His eyes had no more color. They were black like the devil. Like a different person literally entered his body. She was fully clothed. I was screaming and I was like, 'What are you doing? Stop. Please. You're my friend. I love you. Please don't do this. I don't want to do this.' I think he had his hands down my trousers, but I was fighting so hard and I was screaming so hard, hoping that I could get through somehow." She says, "I don't know what the actual definition of sexual assault is, but it feels like that. He didn't rape me." Okay. She says she can, and yeah, all these stories so far, I think they said at the beginning, were corroborated independently. So I don't know if these women have spoken to each other, but it seems like they weren't. They hadn't. They didn't know each other. She says she kept begging him to get off her, and eventually he relented, at which point she says he flipped and was super angry. Phoebe says Brand was shouting, "Fuck you and you're fired." And she says she fled Brand's home in tears, stopping only to grab her shoes before running barefoot to the car. As she left, Phoebe says she passed a group of people who had arrived at the house for a meeting about the project. Years later, she says she met one of the people who had been in this group. She says, "He pulled me aside and he said to me, 'I have never forgiven myself for not running in that house to save you. I heard you screaming and I didn't know what to do. And we were all so scared of him. And I didn't do anything. And I'm sorry.' The Times attempted to contact this person, but he did not respond. Phoebe, who told friends what had happened to her, felt forced to return to work in the days afterward, but she claims that Brand, after becoming aware of her allegation, cornered her and threatened her with legal action. Phoebe did not formally report the incident as she feared that her career would be affected. 3 separate sources confirmed that she had told him about her allegation at the time, while 2 more were also aware of it. A short time later, Brand left the US and moved back to the UK. It was then that serious allegations about his conduct behind closed doors first became public. In 2014, an ex-girlfriend, Jordan Martin, wrote about their relationship in a self-published book, K Not: Entanglement with a Celebrity, in which she renames Brand Randall Grand and herself Dina. She declined to be interviewed for this investigation due to personal family circumstances, but has confirmed that she stands by her account in the book and says that it is an accurate description of their relationship. Brand never challenged her on its content. Brand and Martin had a 6-month relationship from February 2007, during which they briefly lived together. In the book, Martin describes being sexually assaulted by Brand and Brand being physically and emotionally abusive towards her. The alleged assault occurred at the Lowry Hotel in Manchester. She describes how Brand became angry when he found that she had spoken to an ex boyfriend, snatching a phone from her, ripping the case apart, and pulling out the battery. Martin writes about how she then walked away from Brand and was standing at a sink in the room when he came up behind her. In her book, she describes how Brand does not say a word. He stands so close to her. He slides his hand down the front of her low hanging jeans into her underwear and forces a finger inside of her. Martin writes about how she was not ready for this intrusion and did not find it sensual or pleasant. After that, Brand allegedly walked out of the room silently, leaving her feeling confused, uncomfortable, and a little stunned. She also describes how he once forced her to brush her teeth so hard that her gums bled, so she would taste anonymous to him. God. Martin writes that Brand pushed his boundaries, controlling other people to fulfill personal perversions for the sake of dominance or for the sake of something. Brand's attitude towards women became an open secret in radio and TV production, according to sources. Many felt the BBC should have been awake to the concerns about Brand's on air behaviour well before the Sashgate scandal. While hosting his BBC radio show on Six Music, he and his co host, Matt Morgan, would sometimes undress in the studio and encourage guests to do so likewise. When contacted by the Times and Sunday Times, Morgan said, "I stopped working with Russell Brand several years ago. During the time I worked with him, I was never aware of any allegations of serious sexual misconduct against him. I absolutely condemn all forms of mistreatment of women. Looking back on the time I spent working on radio and the BBC, I am regretful to learn that a show I was part of made colleagues uncomfortable at times." In July 2008, Ofcom, the communications regulator, fined the BBC £17,500 for a serious breach of its code after finding that Brand's show on Six Music had faked a competition winner. During other Radio 2 episodes, Brand made a series of sexual remarks about the newsreader Andrea Simmons, describing her on air as erotic and a sex bomb, and telling listeners that he would like to go under the desk while she was reading the news. Several times after this, it is implied that Brand was forced to apologize by BBC production staff. In May 2007, Brand called Jimmy Savile. Whoa. There's an entrance. Who suggested the pair could meet if Brand brought along a sister. Brand doesn't have a sister, so instead offered to bring a female employee, agreeing on Savile's request that she should be naked. Oh my god. Fucking Savile's involved. Oh my fuck. Did not expect that. Did Russell Brand actually comment on the Jimmy Savile case? I feel like he would have had something to say about it. Because everyone was talking about Jimmy Savile when that came out. Let's see if I go to YouTube. YouTube.com. Fuck me. He had spoken about him. Yoga. John Linden from the Sex Pistols saying Russell Brand's revolution is idiotic. Okay. What about his channel?
Of course.
Fuck off. Can you search? You can't search videos anymore, can you? Yeah, whatever. "I've got a personal assistant," he said, "and part of her job description is that anyone I demand she meet, massages, she has to do it. She's very attractive, Jimmy." This was 4 years before Savile's death and 5 years before details of the Jim'll Fix It presenter's crimes were exposed. Whoa. Wait, what? Oh, I'm fucking dumb as shit. All right. Savile. Has he mentioned it? I don't think he has ever spoken about Jimmy Savile. This was the show I saw, The Messiah Complex. Oh god, it was so cringe. It's the biggest fucking waste of time I've ever. Anyway. According to insiders who were working for. Oh, only one L. Sorry. Okay. Trues, this is epic. That's not Jimmy Savile, that's Jimmy Dore. No, I don't think he ever made a video about Jimmy Savile on this channel anyway. Oh well. According to insiders who were working for BBC Radio at the time, complaints were made about Brand's behaviour in the studios to Leslie Douglas, then the BBC's controller for Radio 2 and 6 Music, but nothing appeared to be done as a result. In December 2007, another serious complaint was made by BBC staff to Leslie Douglas about Brand's behaviour in the Radio 2 studio. Sources who were involved said the complaint was made after an alarming display of aggression and disrespect by Brand in the studio, which included Brand hurling objects across the studio in fits of rage, and urinating in a bottle in full view of everyone. Brand had done this, the sources said, in front of production staff and guests, including a young person who appeared to be a minor and had been sent to appear on Radio 2 by a charity. This alleged complaint and any others that had been made were not mentioned in subsequent official reports into Saxgate. Sorry. A spokesman for the BBC said it has clear expectations and policies around conduct at work and had taken the Jonathan Ross Radio 2 incident incredibly seriously. He said, "We hope that demonstrates that the BBC takes issues seriously and is prepared to act." Indeed, we would add that in addition to acting on the serious editorial breach at the time, the BBC has, over successive years, evolved its approach to how it manages talent and indeed how it deals with complaints or issues raised. We will always listen to people if they come forward with any concerns on any issue related to any individual working at the BBC, past or present. Lawyers representing Douglas said Miss Douglas did not at any time encourage, enable, or fail herself to take any adequate steps within her power with regard to the conduct of Russell Brand, of which she was aware. She is presently unable to provide any further information which may be relevant to the matters raised in this article due to the obligations owed her by her former employer. Alice, who later worked at Channel 4, recalled a meeting in late 2013 or early 2014 during which Brand was pitched as a host of a show, but concerns about his behavior were flagged. The solution that was offered was that we would take the female staff of the crew, women that have worked hard to get into this industry, now can't work on particular shows because of fear that they might be assaulted or harassed. I was in disbelief. It would be really hard to disprove that this happened, right? That if like measures had been taken, I'd imagine that would be written down somewhere. Oh. Brand continued to be given opportunities by mainstream broadcasters in the UK, including on Channel 4. In 2019, he appeared on a celebrity edition of Bake Off. He baked biscuits inspired by the genitals of his wife, Laura Gallagher. Okay. A spokesman for Channel 4 said Channel 4 is appalled to learn of these deeply troubling allegations, including behaviour alleged to have taken place on programmes made for Channel 4 between 2004 and 2007. We're determined to understand the full nature of what went on. We have carried out extensive document searches and have found no evidence to suggest that alleged incidents were brought to the attention of Channel 4. We will continue to review this in light of any further information we receive, including the accounts of those affected individuals. We will be asking the production company who produced the programs for Channel 4 to investigate these allegations and report their findings properly and satisfactorily to us. It's said that in the many years since the incidents emerged, there had been extensive change in Channel 4's management, and it was committed to ensuring the TV industry is safe and inclusive. A spokesman for John Knoll Management, the agency that represented Brand from 2002 to 2017, said that for legal reasons on which they cannot elaborate, they were not in a position to respond to questions. Female comedians have warned for years. Oh. For this investigation, journalists were in touch with dozens of comedians who have worked with Brand. A female comedian said that in the early 2000s, when they gigged together, Brand chased her around backstage and bit her on the face, despite her making clear she was uncomfortable. Whenever he saw me, he would grab me and bite my face, and it was coupled up with this weird, horrible energy, she recalls. I said to him, I don't like this, and he still did it so much before he stopped. It was him crossing boundaries. She also witnessed his behavior at parties. He was like the Predator from the 1987 sci fi film. Wow. He would show up and you'd see him scan the room, who he hadn't slept with, who he was going to sleep with. He should never have got to Hollywood. His behavior should have stopped that. But he was able to become a Hollywood star and do well out of it. Daniel Sloss was the only comedian willing to speak on the record and using his real name. I know Daniel Sloss. In 2011, 2012, I kind of just like stumbled into one of his shows at the Fringe when he was very small. And he was even saying that before the Fringe, he had done like a small tour or a small string of gigs around the UK. And they went so badly, he said that he was ready to quit. And now, like, fucking over 10 years later, he's still going. So, yeah, this guy's cool. That was a really small show as well. I think there were only like there were like 50 of us there maybe in the audience. Yeah, but it was good. Anyway, he says he first heard rumors about Brand's behavior on the comedy circuit more than 10 years ago. Sloss says that female comedians have set up online groups that they use to warn each other of comedians and others working in the comedy industry who they have had an unpleasant experience with, including predatory behavior. Sloss says, I know for many, many years that women have been warning each other about Russell. He said, I know there are comedians who have made references in jokes to Russell's alleged crimes and have either been asked or told not to do those jokes anymore. In recent years, Brand has reinvented himself again. He promotes himself as a wellness guru to an estimated 28 million followers across social media, podcasts, and a live festival. He has become known for discussing conspiracy theories while offering advice on subjects such as relationships and addiction. In late 2020, Alice, who is now happily married, contacted Brand's literary agent, Angarad Wood, the co-founder of Tavistock Wood, which is owned by the talent agency Curtis Brown. Alice says she told Brand's representatives what he did to her when she was 16 because she hoped he had changed. She wanted an apology, at the very least, for them to know the type of man they were representing. She says she was told Brand was away at a wellness retreat, but that she could get a response. Alice eventually did hear back from a lawyer acting for Brand who denied her allegations. It was very aggressive, said very clearly I was after money and implied that it was almost blackmail that I was doing, she says. I've never mentioned money. The lawyer was the only person that's ever mentioned money. She replied to Brand's lawyer, emphasizing that she was sharing the truth and had never asked for money. I have spent too long recovering from these acts to have them dismissed or to be intimidated into invalidating my own experiences, she wrote, adding, to even imply that there is a quantifiable amount that would compensate for sexual assault is frankly insulting. It would take his representatives almost 3 years to say they believed Alice. After we contacted them last week, Brand was suddenly removed from the websites of Curtis Brown and Tavistock Wood. The latter then said, Russell Brand categorically and vehemently denied the allegation made in 2020, but we now believe we were horribly misled by him. Tavistock Wood has terminated all professional ties to Brand. Some names have been changed. Well, not a good look for the guy.
Hello there, you Awakening Wonders. Now, this
Jonestown
isn't the usual type of video we make on this channel where we critique.
Shut the fuck up and take it like a man, you big fucking dummy. Okay. That was a very, very detailed article. Holy shit. I don't know. I was tempted to give my my own personal like schizo post reasoning for why I think Russell Brand just always had all the red flags of someone who would do something like this, but I don't even know if it's worth, because the facts, like the claims are there, you know, the statements are there, the investigation findings are there. I might as well, because none of this is as compelling as what we just read. So, if you look up Russell Brand on drug addiction, Jimmy Savile and yoga, it's at 10:30. Oh, okay. Is there something interesting there? Let's see. On drug addiction, yoga. Let's see. 10:30.
Sort of life in the public eye. What do you make of Savile and everything that's unfolded from that?
Again, I think it speaks to the institutionalised attitude that we addressed a moment ago, that it must have been normalised. But I don't think that it should be another...
But is it still with us?
Well, yeah, I think people are paedophiles, aren't they? So
Yeah,
it seems
people
to be
in public
happening.
life, people...
Presumably.
But presumably the culture of prevention is better than it was.
I suppose so, mate. I mean, just generally speaking, there's more awareness, there's less of a sort of tacit acceptance of prejudice and misogyny, and hopefully that reaches as far as paedophilia. But again, I don't know how one addresses such an enormous, toxic subject.
Now, I see from this that you've got some handsome...
It is weird watching him talk like that after reading what we've just read, isn't it?
tattoos. I've seen in the flesh before now.
What do you clarify that, John?
What do you think
Again,
about...
it's just such a non-answer, isn't it?
What do you think of
It's
the
this
tattoo
bit that
business? Some handsome...
This is such an hopelessness.
was. People...
Presumably. Well, yeah, I think people are paedophiles, aren't they? So
Yeah,
it seems
people
to be
in public
happening.
life, people...
Presumably.
But presumably the culture of prevention is better than it was.
Interesting. I think what I put some links to notable people defending Brand in Discord. Okay. Is it in stream chat? Because if it's not, I'm going to soy out. It's not in stream chat. Oh, no, wait. What am I looking for here? Oh. Defenders. I know Tristan Tate was having a pop. Tucker Carlson criticized the drug companies, questioned the war in Ukraine. You can be pretty sure this is going to... Okay. Andrew Tate. Yep. I feel like you also have to kind of like assault and abuse people. You kind of have to do that as well. Probably. Elon Musk. Through fucking hell. He's not even paraphrasing it, isn't he? Okay. Lawrence Fox, eh? God, it's really the fucking who's who of people who lost their minds during the pandemic and failed husbands. I don't know. Shit. I guess I can do my schizo fucking Pepe Silva reasoning for why I think Brand was always a red flag. Because he always does this thing where, and I've always said this, if you're a creator and you're trying to push a message, right, is you need two things. You need to have like substance, like some kind of argument that makes sense or some position that is compelling, like on paper. But you also need aesthetics. You need something that you need presentation, because there's a lot of competition out there and everyone's really easily distracted and people want to be entertained while they're being informed and all this shit. Some people go way too hard in the substance way, like I guess like academics. They don't really care about aesthetics, I suppose. And other people go the opposite way, which is they're all aesthetic and no substance, like Russell Brand. He's probably the prime example of that. Like Russell Brand has nothing to say. He has nothing valuable to offer on any subject ever, for as long as he's ever spoken about anything, because he's always tried to have this transcendental fucking higher awakening consciousness bullshit. Like just say the words capitalism, consumerism, materialist consciousness. Just say those 4 or 5 words every 20 seconds when you remember to. He's been doing that for over 10 years. It's not just since the spiritual awakening thing. And people like that, especially the more new age meditation, spirituality people, there was always this archetype I used to speak about as when I was involved in music scenes and all that kind of parallels, was this idea of like a spiritual fuckboy, or I guess in this case, a spiritual sex predator. Like, there was always this thing where you had this like archetypical people who were very like, and this is a story as old as time, right? Like the people who are very charismatic, very good vocabulary, I guess, like very, very good at making you feel like you're special when they're talking to you. and very good at sounding smart, very good, just very good at like all these things that are not actually true. Like you're not special to them. They're not saying anything clever, but it's all appearances, right? The age of the public speaker and shit. And I feel like with spiritualists, I feel like they're especially bad for this because the way Russell Brand always talks is always about this idea of we have to like transcend to a higher state of being, right? Like a higher consciousness. And it reminds me of a long, long time ago. I heard this thing about from Zizek talking about the weaponization of Zen Buddhism. And again, because it's Zizek, take it with a pinch of salt. He was saying how in Japan, they would use Zen Buddhism to teach their soldiers to not feel anything when they were killing people. Because the idea of Zen Buddhism is that, or like what they would teach, similar to the spiritual thing, is that really the way that we perceive the world is all kind of like taught to us in a very material way. But what like the actual reality of the universe is a lot more chaotic, and what happens in this life is ultimately very insignificant because there's being and existing beyond this life, and there are different stages of consciousness and all that. And like once you get into a worldview that is that nebulous, you can really just justify anything. And I think the example Zizek used was that, like, for a soldier killing someone, they would always view it as in, like, it's not that I'm stabbing you in the eye, it's that my arm and this blade are just kind of dancing aimlessly into the cosmos, and then your head just happened to fucking collide with it. You know, it's like everything is just kind of whatever. There's a higher purpose somewhere that's we're never going to define, but it matters much more than what happens in this world. And people who behave like that, that's why all these, you don't have any moral grounding when you think like that. Like nothing, if you suddenly enter into this worldview where there's just no consequences for anything. And I just wonder why it always seems to be the case, or maybe if it's just a pattern that I don't even know if it's a real pattern. Maybe it's just one that I've recognized that isn't actually there. But this idea that there are people who use, like, weaponize this kind of vagueness of and like spirituality and new age stuff just to be predatory. I know this happened in the 70s and 80s. There were all these like new age religious cults, and like the leaders would always turn out to be just like sex pests or pedophiles and whatever the fuck, right? Um, and I definitely heard stories about it from the music scene as well, especially around like hippie scenes, because like I knew a bunch of fucking hippies, but I was never really that involved in those groups. But like I know when Me Too came out, a few girls from like hippie groups would come out with their stories about older guys who were very good at talking and very good at like acting as if they had like transcended to a higher level, and it was always with drugs. And then they would give drugs to these fucking underage girls at festivals, and then just like like assault them basically. I felt like I heard that story repeat itself so many times. Um, yeah, I don't know. Or I think there's the other side of things, which is like people like Russell Brand, or whenever I see people who are quite like older celebrities who have found Christ, it's always like the most toxic people, right? Who have found some kind of like higher being. Because I remember in wrestling, it was Shawn Michaels, right? Like the guy who was like the most toxic fucker in the business, who would just like who fucked people over, who was horrible to the women, to the other guys, and all that. And then like half the people fucking hated him. But then in like the 2000s or late 2000 or 2010s, he like finds Jesus and shit, you know? It's like, yeah, of course. Or Jeffrey Dahmer finding Jesus in jail, or I guess like Russell Brand finding spirituality after he's like abused a bunch of people, allegedly. Allegedly. Yeah. But again, that doesn't add anything to the evidence. It's just, I don't know. I just feel like I always knew. I don't know. Fuck. Try not to let my bias affect this too much, but god damn it. Andrew Tate becoming Muslim. Yeah, yeah. Because ultimately, for Russell Brand, his whole life, they say that he's shapeshifted so much. Like he used to be a comedian, drug addict, political revolutionary, left winger, um, well-being guru, conspiracy theorist. The one thing that's always been held in common there is that he is desperate for affirmation and for people to pay attention to him. He hasn't changed at all. He's just done what gets him the most attention and affirmation. That's it. And I guess like hedonism, that's what pleasure chasing. It's funny how he always talks about his meditation stuff and his well-being and how he's trying to transcend the material world and trying to transcend all these faux desires that are imposed on us by capitalism and shit. Meanwhile, he fucking announces his subscriber count in every video. I'm like, fuck off. You're not, who the fuck are you fooling? Telling everyone to subscribe at the end of the video and smash the notification bell and join the mailing list. Like, what the fuck are you doing? You just found a different way to promote your celebrity in a way that's like different from what was the way that you did it in the 2000s. Oh God, I hate Russell Brand so much. Oh my God. Oh well. I don't know. There's gonna be a. I don't know if there's gonna be a. Was anyone watching the Channel 4 thing? Do we have any opinions on that? It's so convenient, though. God, it's so convenient that this comes out after he's cultivated an audience that just thinks everything the mainstream media says is a lie. Because and they're the only example they go with these days is the fact that that CNN fucked up with the ivermectin thing. Ugh. Anyway, I'm sure we'll have further information coming out soon. Maybe we'll keep you guys updated, but I think I'm maybe a bit done with old Russell for now. You know, I distinctly remember writing that script about him when I called him the Lord of Spiritual Fuckboys. I wanted to say spiritual sex predators, but I thought that might be a bit much for a YouTube. I should really just go with my gut next time, you know?